Now, how many of you are already familiar with SMART goals? S-M-A-R-T. Some of you are. And this is the filter. Now, I saw several different versions of SMART. I don't know if you can see that, but there is in your handout G10 is SMART goals. And once you have your goal or goals somewhat determined, you then should run them through the filter of are they SMART. And there are other acronyms too, but this seems to be the one that's been around for the longest time. So first of all, is your goal specific? Does it pinpoint something specific? And somebody said right at the beginning, concrete. So it needs to be concrete. So instead of I want to get in shape, a first goal might be I will lose 5 pounds. Now, I have to say to me those are two different. I didn't write those two examples and I didn't change them, but they're actually two different goals in my opinion. But I want to get in shape, but okay, you need to be more specific than that. What is it exactly that you want to achieve? Your goals need to be measurable. So how are you going to know when you've achieved it? So we talked about the goal of a GED or the goal of a grade 12 or the goal of level 1 or the goal of level 2. You need a measurable goal so that you know that once you've achieved it, you can actually check that goal off and say, here, I achieved that goal. Now, I have action-oriented, but you also will see achievable in a SMART acronym, or attainable. So in those cases, it's more realistic. Is it something that I can really do? But action-oriented, I really liked that because that requires that you break your goal into those smaller steps and tasks. So the goal of I want to learn another language, that's an excellent goal, but it's when you start breaking it down into smaller steps and actual tasks that you can see how you can take those steps towards achieving it. Now, it seems to me that a lot of the discussion that I've heard is around number 4, and that's realistic. So, can you achieve that goal with the resources that you have? Is that actually a goal that you can achieve? Here's a perfect example from a group that I was working with a long, long time ago. And one of the women in the group, her goal was to be a grandmother. Now that's an awesome goal, but is that a realistic goal for her?
It's a little out of her control.
That's right.
Does she have kids?
Okay, well there's a start. Yes. It's got to at least be realistic. Does she have kids to start with? But that's a goal that she's really setting for somebody else because that's not her goal. And that's one of the conversations, an important conversation I think that needs to be had about, is this goal, is it your goal, and can you achieve it with the time you have, with the resources you have, with who you are? And after we finish this last part, I'd like to have a little, or actually we could do it now, have a little bit more of a discussion about that, because what I heard, at least especially from a discussion at this table, is that's perhaps one of the great challenges with working with learners at level 1 or 2, whose goals may not be, in your opinion or in what you know about them, realistic. And how do you deal with that? How do you move them to that point, and what kind of discussions do you have with them? Does anybody have any thoughts on that or any suggestions?
You start breaking it down to sub-goals. So if they have an unrealistic goal, if you break it down to sub-goals, it might drive it more home that you can't really get there based on these other smaller steps you need to take.
That's what I said, but apparently that doesn't always work either.
Well, some of those small goals still aren't achievable.
Yeah. And if you have also someone that perhaps lacks some reasoning critical thinking
Yeah.
skills, to talk to them about, you know, how to decide if a goal is realistic or not, even if it is a small goal, can be a bit of a challenge without discouraging or making someone feel badly in some way.
So is that a challenge that others of you experience as well?
Unfortunately, I look at it almost too like I think of my daughter, who's 9, says she wants to be a singer, right? And these are adults we're working with. It may be the same, they're looking at the same type of goals, but they're already adults. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying my daughter won't be a singer, she might be, but
Right.
those are more dreams at that age.
Right.
So I think even when they're in this age of lower level, level 1, kind of there's an intellectual challenge working, I don't want to say against them, but in a way it is.
Yep.
And they're not really understanding the concept of how that all works.
In the first group that I worked with, going back probably about 10 years, one of my learners was about 26. And we did goal setting. He wanted to be a race car driver. Okay? And I wasn't aware of any cognitive deficiencies. But at 26, his goal was still, he wanted to be a race car driver. Okay, what kind of things do you need to think about if you want to be a race car driver? And at 26, he still wasn't living, eating, dreaming cars and engines and stuff. And I think if you're going to be competitive at that sort of level in anything, you have to be totally, totally involved in it from a very, very early age. And the reality is, you want to say, well, you can be anything you want to be, but at 26, you're still here around the table and you're talking about, I want to be a race car driver when I grow up.
Your time's kind of, you are grown up.
Yeah.
So,
Like, at what point are you ethically, that's like, I was talking about it sort of on an ethical level, like, sometimes I feel like.
burst that bubble?
Yeah, but sometimes I don't want to burst the bubble, but I also don't feel, I don't want to be dishonest. I feel like I'm sort of lying through a mission if I don't say, you know what I mean? If I don't say.
And it's one thing when you're talking about singers and race car drivers, but when the topic is, I want to get my GED.
That's right.
And it's
It's
the
very
same,
scared.
the same discussion. It's not, you know, it's not going to happen. Never,
Very
ever, ever.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's
so
the
do you
idea.
have a discussion about options?
It's hard, it's hard.
It's
It's
You know,
hard.
what
It's
you
better
say,
than
you're
something
never,
else.
ever, ever going to be able to get your GED. That's not what you say.
No,
No.
look at other options possibly. But
I
when I
have-
say, will I get my GED?
Yeah. What are you doing here? I'm here to get my GED.
And then what do you say?
Or in some cases even, like, I'm thinking of a particular student who, you know, we have had that tough conversation in a positive way, but over and over again
They're
every
still
year,
saying the same thing.
that's my goal, I'm gonna do it, and there's
Because
no
they're hearing it
changing.
from family, from friends.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly, they, a
A
lot
lot
of
of
people don't
other people
understand
said-
how hard the GED is.
It also
Yeah.
gives them a sense, I think, a sense of prestige to be able to say, or, you know, they can say to people, I'm working towards my GED.
Yeah.
And that is socially acceptable.
And that's what
Right.
they're doing.
Good for you.
Yeah. that's
Great,
right.
how's that going?
You may never get there.
Whereas if you say I'm working towards being a race car driver, they're gonna look at you.
Or I'm just working to maintain my skill, you know, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's, you're right, and then society has this idea of what is acceptable to be doing at certain
Yeah.
ages.
And it is probably a lot of what other people, what they see around them are putting onto them.
But we also have the other population in our classes that come to our classes just because that's what they do, right?
Yeah, I've
For
seen
some learners,
that.
it's a safe place to go.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
a safe place to go.
Yeah.
and they've been coming there year after year after year after year.
And I mean, let's face it, some of them, they know. Like, I hate to think this, but I know it's true, but I try not to think of it, but they know that this is one of the only places where they can go where, you know, they might not be able to get a job. Like, what else are they going to do besides maybe some volunteer work, you know, and they feel it becomes a,
And
yeah,
then,
it's tricky.
and then unfortunately, it goes back to where our funding comes in. They're looking at those numbers are people who've gone through and actually got something, and that we're not doing anything for these people that are there year after year after year, but we are,
It's very complex, isn't it?
but it's not attainable or measurable when you look at funding and government statistics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments? Any comments from well, any of the tables, I guess, on this problem?
We were just talking about maybe not having that discussion with them at all, because at some point, it's a quality of life issue for some of their learners, whether they have dreams of becoming
An astronaut.
or a rock star. If we know, in fact, that that is not possible, but that person is extremely happy, does it matter that much if you tell them that that's not going to happen? If everybody else in their life tells them, you go for it, then why would we be the one person who says, oh, well, those aren't really realistic goals, because it doesn't matter.
But what about when they aren't happy? What about when they're
When
unhappy?
they're not happy, that's a different
That's what,
situation.
yeah.
But some of our learners would be quite content in getting up every day with the idea that their existence is to become an astronaut, and you're just going to improve their life,
But there
enhance their
doesn't need
life.
to be a discussion
Have
about
to be
the
discussion
astronaut.
about it.
Right, that's right.
Why would you continually throw that out there, so.
That's right. And you can focus on the goals that they are working on
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
with you.
Yeah.
That's where the step by step, nothing to do with astronaut, just step by step learning.
Yeah,
And as long as he says
Take
that
your
astronaut
astronaut
piece,
insert
it's
GED.
fine.
Yeah, that's what I was
Take
thinking.
out astronaut and insert GED.
Yeah, same thing. I have students that would want to get their GED, and
Takes a long time.
like Jean said, it's like, it becomes something that they feel very proud about doing.
Yeah.
And whether or not they're going to be able to do it or not, and in a lot of cases, well, with my students, many of them, that's just not possible. But it is very important for them to feel that
Yes.
that is,
So
that's,
working on it.
that's what they're going to do.
So if you continue to work on those skills, following that guideline, so you work through the math curriculum, you work through the language arts as if,
But
I guess
what
it
about
doesn't
when
work.
you get to the point?
Well, if you're getting to that point,
You
maybe
just
there's
do
a
it over
possibility.
again.
No, I mean, what if you get to the point where they aren't able to do the work? Do you go back through and cycle through it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then they'll ask, can I do this? But, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it is complicated, and it's very challenging. So, and what I'm hearing is there are different ways of dealing with it. I'm not sure that any of us have the answers to that really tough dilemma.
So with the goal setting, what I'm afraid of is that they're gonna pull this level one without measurable, attainable
Yes.
goals, academic, employment goals, they're gonna pull this level one program,
Yeah.
which for many of our learners is a life skills
Right.
thing, and a socialization. and,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which isn't in that employment business at all.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's a positive life and
Experience.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm
Discussion.
Yeah.
concerned about.
So now I 10 minutes left, right? Is that what you were? Oh,
was supposed to.
oh, it was you? Oh, I thought it was, yes.
It's also, yeah, you hit it right in the head, it's also a safe place for them.
Yes.
Yes,
Well, that's just it.
absolutely, and that is a goal,
Safe and positive.
right?
Yes.
That might be the most important goal, even if they don't articulate that, to be able to have that safe place to go to with the group every day.
I was just gonna say, it's from a mental health perspective too. Like, our level 1-2 students, you can pretty much guarantee that they're not gonna make it to level 3. If someone's been in it for 10 years, one of them can do the same assignment 3 days in a row and have no recollection of having done it before.
Yeah.
I'm of the school of, don't tell her she's not gonna make it. We sometimes combine our 1, 2, and 3 class. They kind of mentor each other a little bit sometimes. So that makes her feel like she's somehow involved in level 3. That gives her a little touch of it. But my concern with telling people, you know, if you take that away from them and tell them they're not going to go to level 3, they're not going to do their GED, you're kind of taking away what they're existing for. Like we sometimes worry about going a summer without having classes because we have to worry about the mental health of some of our students. We have a 4-day weekend and it's like, I hope this person's okay.
Right.
Come Tuesday.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I wonder if there is anyone of the school that, you know, be honest and out there with them. I'd like to think that people are giving them something else. No, don't take it away and leave them with nowhere to go and no outlet, because you know,
There's so much pressure on I guess as practitioners, there's so much pressure to deliver a program that has concrete outcomes in terms of what they've set for goals that advance them up to, again, like level 3 or level 2 in some cases. And honestly, I don't know what the percentages would be of most of the learners that end up in the level 1 and 2 program to begin with, without that potential. But there still is so much pressure on the practitioner to deliver an academic program that enables them to move forward in that academic stream or with those goals, and it's
Yeah.
not,
No, it's, yeah,
not
it's tricky.
always really doable, right?
No. So now, I'm just going to have, I'll have one more comment and then we'll, I've got a few more things to say to wrap it up. But it is a dilemma for sure. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and then it comes to your goals as well, when you feel, like you were saying, there's so much pressure, you know, and sometimes you judge yourself
You do.
as a teacher based on those, and so it can make your goals a little shaky, or you wonder if you're attaining them, because you're being held to that standard that if your students aren't succeeding by meeting this, and this, whose fault is it? Well, I'm not going to blame my student. I'm going to say it's my fault, right?
I'm wondering what I'm going to teach in 2 years. I'm reinventing curriculum.
Exactly.
So what I'm hearing is that the realistic goals that you can set with your learners are not necessarily the realistic goals that you feel you're supposed to be achieving with them.
Right.
Yeah,
And then you've got
That's
those
a complicated-
learners that, you know, you said in level 3 and do the same assignment 3 times in a row and don't remember it, but they'll see somebody else who actually is going through level 3 and completes it within a year or 2, and they've been in level 3 for 10
And they're
years.
saying, why
Yeah.
can't I?
And why am I not going through?
yeah. So just,
Do you have a Band-Aid for that?
no, I don't have the
Answer?
answer to that one, but I'm really glad we had the discussion because clearly it's something that everyone is grappling with. And it just shows you how complex goal setting is with this group of learners, right? I mean, I started off by saying this isn't something you do all in one piece and you do it part by part, but it's much more complex even than that. There are layers of complexity. So just to finish off, goals that are realistic. I mean, I think the realistic is the crux there and the most challenging part of that. Timely or time bound. Do you have a time set for it? If we had days, we would go on to action planning, and with goal setting, it really is doing that action planning that helps you to actually set out the blocks of how you will achieve that goal. So what are the small steps? And you can have as many steps as possible. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? What are the resources that you need? Who will help you? And when will you get there? And all of these, I mean, if you really are doing goal setting, all of these pieces are important. But to end up with an action plan that for, you know, whether it's me doing goal setting or you doing goal setting or you're doing goal setting with learners, to have that action plan really does help you to move forward. Just a couple of things that I will mention. Again, I will send this to you and you can, I'll take my name off it. I just put that on there because I was playing around with things. But you can use any of these exercises or modify them or do whatever you want with them. There is a page of quotes in there. G1 was goal setting quotes, two-sided. I find that those are fun to use just to get people to read and talk about and think about, and some people will pick a favorite one and you know, might want to cut it out or print it or make something out of it. As I mentioned, the goals collage exercise is one that I really like, but again, then it's moving from that broader, more abstract piece to the more concrete. Let's see. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that if you go on Pinterest, you can find all kinds of neat stuff about goal setting. So if you like, you know, colorful, interesting sheets, especially for the action planning, because you know, if you want to post them or if you want to, you know, put them somewhere where you're going to see them all the time, Pinterest has all kinds of interesting worksheets that you can use and print off with all, you know, nice fonts and graphics and all of that sort of thing that I certainly don't have. And then at the end, I summarized the steps on the last page, so that's kind of your reference. How are we doing? I think we're, oh, excellent.
It's okay.
No, I like to be done on time. So that's it for me. I don't know if you want to ask any questions. I'm always very mindful of being done on time because I know what I'm like. I'm like, okay, we're done.
So
Now I'm ready to go.
What kind of timeline are you from starting with your exercises to making an action plan? What kind of a timeline do you usually, like a first pass through it? I know these things are revised and revised, but.
I think it probably varies, but I would think it would be something you might do over a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
For a couple of weeks, or
You might want, yep.
so 10 sessions, or?
You, yeah, you might want to work on a part of it every day over a couple of weeks. You might not want to do it every day. You might go back to things. There might be pieces that you repeat, so you might do something twice and then, but I would think probably over a period of a couple of weeks. And you might do some of it in group. You might do some of it one-on-one with people, especially when you're getting down to that more concrete level and actually looking at those, kind of the tough part of it and the tough questions. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Safe driving, everyone, wherever you're going, and I hope it's just rain wherever you're headed.